Salam Tana, T'aina Yistalim, Shabbat Shalom, Senbet Salam. This is the Haile Selassie, or the 26th Senbet, or Sabbath remembrance and Sabbath memorial, with the Sabbath reading, as well as the Sabbath teaching, the Sabbath reading, the Sabbath feeding from the Holy Scriptures. And this is known as Be Simintanyawum Ken, or Shemini, Simintanyaw, Be Simintanyawum Ken, Shemini. And it's from the Orit, the Torah reading is Leviticus, Orit ze Lewawiyan, Mi'raf ze Tang, chapter 9, verses 1 to Orit ze Lewawiyan, Leviticus, chapter Asara and chapter 11 to verse 47. Now, what is contained, the overview for us is what is contained in this, the 26th Senbet, or Senbet Haile Selassie, in the 26th Senbet, which is known as in the 8th day, or the 8th day. Now, from the available Masoretic Jewish liturgy, the Jewish liturgy, let's put this here, the Jewish liturgy, well, we have the Chumash, the Chemosh, or the 5 books, which is used in the synagogue, the Mikorab worship and ordinance. It's right here, it says on the 8th day, Shemini, Be Simintanyawum Ken, on the 8th day. Now the 8th day would actually be Sunday, or Ehud. Ehud would be the 8th day. Now let's first of all go through the reading in chapter 9. The first bait is from verse 1 of chapter 9, Mi'raf Zetain, from verse 1 to verse 7. So let's first begin with the English, give an overview of what this particular reading contains. This reading contains the information and the teaching concerning the priests beginning their ministry, the kahanat beginning their kahanat. The kahanat here begin their kahanat. In other words, the priests, kahanat, begin their priesthood, their kahanat, or agelgalot, their service or their ministry. Then we have the matter concerning the strange fire of Nadab and Abihu, the strange fire, the Ingada Isat. And then that's in chapter 10, Mi'raf Aser. And then we have a Mi'raf Asera, and in chapter 11, we have a holy God, a holy people, and the first of the 5 elements of the holy people and the holy God, the relationship. The first is the dietary, or the livity regulations, or the so-called diet, or what we know in Rastafari as the livity regulations of our livity. What are the regulations for our livity? There are livity regulations, or so-called dietary regulations of the covenant, the Kal Kidan Hizb. The covenant people must be regarded primarily as sanitary or as hygienic. So there are certain hygienic regulations. So in the revelation of Rastafari, we call it the livity. And there are certain hygienic or Leviticus-based regulations in the revelation of Rastafari and amongst the Rastafari community. You understand, both the individual, beginning at the individual, and then embracing and extending to the collective. You understand? And the foundation for these teachings are found here. Now, what's interesting and hopefully we'll have opportunity to go into it in more detail, is that concerning the livity or the dietary, so-called dietary regulations, we have the Kubra Negest, also touching on dietary regulations that are announced once that Hebrew remnant coming out with Solomon, the King Solomon and Queen of Sheba's only son Menelik, were entering into Ethiopia or Ethiopia, and the Afrikawi Zion, the African Zion. There were regulations that the son of Zadok, Azarias or Azariah, where he proclaimed also the Leviticus dietary or Leviticus livity regulations concerning what foods, you understand, were to be eaten. Initially, the first point is what foods were to be eaten. Then there's the law of motherhood, which comes next. Then is concerning leprosy. Leprosy is another aspect concerning that holy God, Kedus Amlak, Kedus Hizbah, Ginyunyet, or relationship. Then we have the law of the lepers cleansing the leprosy. And then we have the imperative or the commandment of cleansing. So these are certain areas concerning that relationship of a holy God and a holy people. So that actually we will touch on more, Yah willing, in the following or the coming Senbet, or the Senbet known as Haya Sebat or Haya Sebatenyao, the 27th, or the next Sabbatical reading and feeding, and the next Senbet Shabbat day coming forward. But in this teaching for the 26th, which is continuing on the basic themes and elements and teachings from the 25th, and this is very important for the Dek Mezamuritanet and the discipleship and those who have expressed interest and desire for discipleship within the LOJ, Aligned Jewish Society of His Imperial Majesty, remembering to keep the Senbet, Yetek Edese, or holy, and utilizing this time and opportunity, and becoming familiarized with it, and seeking to avoid some of these more pharisaical kind of sabbatical, the additional laws that have crept in, or man-made rules and regulations. And our Moshe Christos, Jesus Christos, he challenged the so-called religious or the overzealot, crowd on those matters. So it's for us to first of all learn, well, what is the revealed or the holy word, of the Almighty concerning these issues. And this is the basic foundation. The basic foundation for discipleship is study of Orit or Torah, in the light of the Wengel, in the light of the gospel, because that which Jesus Christos fulfilled, we have a shadow of it, and the basic elementals of it, the foundation. Building our house on the rock means we must build on that foundation. So first is the Torah, or is the books of Moses. Then we have the prophets, and then we have the Psalms. And Jesus Christos himself also showed us this example, of what we must learn, or what we must study to show ourselves approved to Kedus Amlakachin, Kedus Abatachin, to our holy God, our holy Father. So let us touch on this right here, what we have before us in the 26th Sabbatical study. The 26th Sabbatical study. Let's go over an overview. So here in chapter 9, beginning at chapter 9, verse 1, and this Sabbath is named Bamarinya in the Amharic, according to the Revised Amharic Bible, or the Metaf Kedus of Negus and Neges, of the King of Kings, of Kedus Abatachin. It's called the Bet Semintenyawum, or Bet Semintenyawum Ken. Bet Semintenyawum, or Bet Semintenyawum Ken, in the 8th, or in the 8th day. In the Hebrew, it's known as SHEMINI or SHEMINI, and it begins from chapter 9 of Leviticus to chapter 11 of Leviticus. And there are certain important elements that we can take note of. First of all, we said this is where the priests begin their service or begin their ministry, the kahanat, which is the Ethiopic name for the priest as persons, and their function is called the kihanet, or the priesthood. And we call the ministry or the service the agelgelot, from the basic root magelgel, in other words, to serve. So Aaron le'egziabihir yakarabo meswa'it. Aaron presents to Egziabihir, to the sustainer Yahweh Baruch. He presents the sacrifice. That's what chapter 9 contains. Then when we get to chapter 10, the second part of the Torah-based readings and feeding is Nadab Inna Bihu Yefetz Amuta Bedel. It is the wrong which was committed by Nadab and Abihu in the matter concerning the Ingada Isat, or the strange fire. Then also in this chapter we have Kahinat Memoria Hug, the law that governs the regulation of the priest. Kahinat Memoria Hug. In chapter 11, Asara Andenyao, the 11th chapter, we have Yemi Bellu Insisat Oinet. Yemi Bellu Insisat Oinet, or the kinds of animals which were allowed in that dispensation to be eaten. You understand? Or we can look at chapter 11 as what we mentioned it from before, the first aspect of the holy God and holy people relationship that concerns the livity regulations, the so-called dietary regulations, or what foods were to be eaten and what foods were to be avoided concerning animals by a holy people. Now, we learn much when we get to the metaphysical understanding of the application of the symbology of the particular kind of animals which were permitted and which animals were not permitted. In other words, we call this area, in order to overstand it in a law-abiding way, we call this area actually the hieroglyphical. You understand, the hieroglyphical keys are very important. The hieroglyphical, the Medun Neder Neter keys are very important in deciphering the original intent, you understand, of Orit and Torah. You understand, of the original instruction, how the original instruction was to be received, how it was given, and how it was intended to be received in that holy God and holy people relationship right there. You understand? So that is the last part of this particular reading and feeding. And what we want to go over initially, you understand, now following up from there, we want to give it Bamarinya, you understand, Bamarinya, Be'Inglezinya, and certain key words need to be kept in mind. So here the priests begin their ministry. And let's go over, this is from verse 1, to verse 7. Besim Abba Wewalida Wemenefes Kedus Ahadu Amlak Orita Zelewawiyan Mi'raf Zet'eng Besimentenya Umak Ena Indih Hone Muse Aaron na lejochun Ye Israel nima shmagale wochatara Aaron nima alo Selechat iata mesoa ita Kamena gawa imbosawin. Selemik at elima mesawa itam. Aura winna bega nawura yelela bacho winna wesade. Be egezi ab herfi takarabacho. Ye Israel nimalijocham. Zare gezi abhera yigalet alachochalina lechati ata mesawa ita aura fielin lemik at elima mesawa ita nawura yelela bachoin anda ometa yehonachoin embo sanat ebotin Ledechin etima mesoa ita berenina aurana begum. Bezeitima yetelawase ye ihilina qurbana be egzi avi herfita yisawuzen. Wisadu bele nigaracho. Musema yazezacho ina wode megenanya din kwana de jafa metu machberum huluk erbo be egezi abi herfita komu musem Tadar guta zenda egezi avi herre yazezoa yihino. Ye egezi avi herre makbura yigalet alachukhala ale. Musemaronin. Wede meshawiyawa karabe. Yehat yatihina meswa itina yemikat elawina meswa itihina sawa le rasihina le hizbu mastesri Igazi ab herimandazeze ye hizbuna qurbana qaribam asa tesri alachowim alawm. This is the first bait, the first paragraphical of the chapter of Leviticus chapter 9, where the priests begin, where it reads that the priests begin their ministry. The priests begin their ministry. Aaron le'egzi avihir yakarabo meswa'it. Aaron presents to Egezi Abihir the sacrifice, or really the offering. Really more correctly, it's the offering. Meswa'it. It's the offering. And it reads, and it came to pass on the 8th day, thus the name of this 26th Senbet, or Besimin Tenyau and Shemini or Shemini. It came to pass on the Shemini, Be Simintanyawum and that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said to Aaron, take thee a young calf for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering without blemish, and offer them before the sustainer Yahweh Baruchu. And to the children of Israel thou shalt speak, saying this, take ye a kid of the goats for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both of the first year without blemish, for a burnt offering. And it goes on in verse 4, also a bullock and a ram for a peace offering to sacrifice before the sustainer Yah, and a meat or meal offering mingled with oil. For today Yahweh the sustainer Ekaziyavher lotu sabhat will appear to you. And they brought that which Moses commanded before the tabernacle of the congregation. All the congregation drew near and stood before the sustainer Yahweh. And Moses said, this is the thing which the sustainer Yahweh commanded that ye should do. And the glory, or the Shekinah, the Shekinah, the Kubur of Egeziavi, of the sustainer Yahweh, Baruch Hu, shall appear to you. And Moses said to Aaron, go to the altar and offer thy sin offering, thy burnt offering, and make an atonement for thyself, or for Rasihin, for your head, and for Lehizbu, for the people, and offer the Meswa'it of the people, and make an atonement for them as the sustainer Yahweh commanded. And this is verse 7. So this is the first paragraphical of this particular chapter. Now, overall, this is where Aaron where he presented an offering, to Egeziavi. Now, in order to understand the importance, or the hieroglyphical keys, or the real hermeneutics or interpretation of these offerings, we have to first understand the physical, and in Christ, and through the Mashiach, you understand, through the Mashiach, through the new birth, through the regeneration, we can understand now the metaphysical, you understand, or the spiritual. So first are the natural things, and then are the spiritual things. First are the physical things, and then are the metaphysical things. So many get confused, because when they read this, they are reading this with the veil, in other words, over their eyes. And therefore all they're seeing is so-called animal sacrifices. You understand? And that was the fault of later Judaism, which the Moshiach Yehoshua, which he reproved. You understand? He reproved the so-called Jews, or the religious authority of that day, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, the so-called doctors, and the reverends, the pastors, the bishops. You understand? All of these leaders of religion, for their hypocrisy, you understand, and their error. But from the very beginning, in the foundation of this teaching on Leviticus, we tried to remind you all, and remind the disciples, of the fact that, first of all, Schofield Study Bible has a preliminary, is a preliminary study for the disciples. In the sabbatical studies, when you look at the footnotes and you reference it and you meditate upon it and you reason and even have fellowship and Bible study, you will notice that the burnt offering, it typifies, is a type of Christos, Christ offering himself without spot to Egeziavi, to the sustainer, to do his Father's will, even to death. And then it breaks down for us, you understand, as a preliminary overview, the creatures that were acceptable for sacrifice, the 5 types of creatures, and what they symbolize. Now, we understand the symbolism based on the Ethiopic Genesis, you understand, or based on the Kemet, you understand, and based on the Ethiopia, the Tobia, the ancient Ethiopia, out of which these original ancient mysteries came from, its true African, or its true black, you understand, its root, or its true Ethiopic roots. Then we'll be able to properly decipher, you understand, why and how the Almighty called his son out of Egypt, why he sent them into Egypt, what was the rescue mission, you understand, really to be about, and to really be for, and to really understand that which comes before. You understand Judaism, or at least what we know today of Judaism from its roots. So if we study these creatures, like for example the 5 creatures that were acceptable for the Meswa'it, according to the basic elements, we have the bullock, or the ox, as one, and that's also a type, that's a hieroglyph, we can say. Then we have the sheep, or the lamb, which is another type of hieroglyph. We have the goat, you understand, or the goat type, or that which looks like the goat in the hieroglyphs, you understand, which is also a type. We have the turtle dove, or the pigeon, You understand? The turtle dove or the pigeon, which is also a type. So these are the basic 5 types of creatures which were acceptable for the meswa'it, for the sacrifice. And now keep in mind this principle, and we keep reminding even ourselves, and have to remind ourselves, so we don't make the error of those who had the veil over their eyes in the reading of Musa, in the reading of Moses, but the veil is taken away in Christos. The veil is taken away in Christ and his kingly character. So we can understand that even though these were types, you understand, for a sacrifice, the real type is a spiritual type. You understand? It's just like when you teach children, you understand, and they have like a cartoon, you understand, or you use a broad sketch. You understand? As a child grows and grows in knowledge, they begin to understand the fine details and the abstracts. You understand? Even though originally concrete, you understand, or raw type of images needed to be used initially, as they grow, they begin to understand, think with a more abstract, a refined mind. And this is what it means for us to transform ourselves, not to be conformed to the world, but transform ourselves by renewing of the mind. So the bullock, being the bullock or the ox, is interesting, is the first type, the bullock or the ox, because that typifies Christ, Christos, the Mashiach, as the patient and enduring agelgai, or servant, who was obedient to death, and his offering in this character. So his offering, so when we see the bull type, you understand, even in ancient Egypt, or the bullock type being so-called worshipped according to the Eurocentric approach, you understand, or the European mind and the European interpretation of ancient Egypt, they would say they worship the animals, but the animals obviously were a spiritual type. But here in the Hebrew Bible, you understand, or the Jewish so-called Bible, the Old Testament, we also have the same thing being said to us, but people don't make that connection. You see what I'm saying? Because there's a middle wall, as New Testament says. There's that middle wall. There's that partition. There's that middle wall of separation. And this is why that middle wall of separation has to come down. And that middle wall comes down in Christ. And it's interesting, as we're approaching Fasika, as we gradually are approaching Fasika, that one of the main key words for Fasika, or the main key phrases that concerns Fasika and that middle wall, or that wall of separation that was there, and how that wall of separation is undone, or that wall of separation, it collapses in Christ, is also another very interesting verse that I would like to share with you, because when you begin to understand these elements and put them together, you begin to see where the harmony of the scriptures really is, and how we've been so woefully how we've been hoodwinked and bamboozled and deceived, or only told bits and pieces of it, and even that in a very twisted way. Let's get this part of the verse, because there's a couple of things that can really accept it, as well as they identified themselves with what they were offering, that this really should be me. Word to God, there go I, is another way of seeing it and recognizing that this is me. This is in place of me. In type, it answers to the Mitmenon's imnet, to their subjective faith, accepting and identifying himself with Christos, identifying himself with the Mashiach. Romans touches on examples of that as well, and teaching on that. Romans 4 and 5, chapter 4, verse 5, Romans chapter 6, verses 3 to 11. Now the Mitmenon, or the faithful, the one who admits in spirit and in truth. The mitman on the manya is justified, is now made righteous, is justified.